in the coming weeks and months. In a sikha that the Rebbe gave for the students graduating from Beis Rivka, which the Rebbe customarily would speak to the graduates on an annual basis, the Rebbe on the 26th of Sivan said the following: as I requested, they will publish the Yud Beis Psukim and the Maimorim, the verses of our sages, in a special format, pocket format, and distribute it to children or adults, and it should always be at hand in order to remember it and in order to review it constantly. And it seems like it will be complete, it will be published in the upcoming days. In the coming days. And as mentioned earlier, that this protects the Jewish nation from the Klippa in world, because since Yidden connect with the Pnimius, with the inner spheres of the world, and that is the true content of the world. So B'meila, the Yud Beis Psukim will protect the Jewish nation. We'll read now a dateline of what actually took place. This was something that dragged on for a week. It was June 27th, on a Sunday. An Air France flight was hijacked and refueled in Libya. But Libya did not allow them to land there. Monday, June 28th, the hijacked aircraft lands in Ankara, Uganda. On Tuesday, June 29th, the hostage takers issued demands that they want terrorists freed from Israeli jails and threatened to kill passengers from 2 p.m. on July 1st. Wednesday, June 30th, some passengers are released, but not the Jewish passengers, and they are questioned by Mossad in Paris. The Israeli intelligence officials in Paris. On Thursday, July 1st, Israel offers to negotiate. Hostage takers extend the deadline, release 101 passengers. And again, not the Jewish ones. Friday, July 2nd, Israeli Special Forces rehearse rescue. Shabbos, July 3rd, Israeli cabinet approves rescue. Assault force dispatched to Ankara storms airport. And on Sunday, July 4th, freed hostages arrive back in Eretz Yisrael. This flight was from Tel Aviv to France. It went out Mitzvah Shabbos, and a whole week it dragged on with the demands from the terrorists, and the next Mitzvah Shabbos, July 4th, going on to Sunday, the 101, about 100 Jews were rescued. Just understand what Yidden experienced then. Yidden all over the world were very, very nervous about it. Nobody knew what the outcome will be. Everybody was hoping for Yeshua. And the Yeshua took place, as mentioned. This was July 4th, or in the Hebrew date it was Hey Tammuz, Hey Vav Tammuz. Interesting to note that when they sent the Rebbe a report about strategy, v'chulu, this was, it seems like, after, the Rebbe thanks them for the book and for the report, and the Rebbe says, as understood, I began reading it immediately, and once I began reading it, I read it till the end, in one continuation. Although there were also other matters that were on the agenda then, but the Rebbe said that this was the priority. Benegir to the impression that it makes, so the Rebbe refers to a certain person and says that surely you will see it for yourself, although I suspect that you will be much calmer than me, as the Rebbe says the Lashon, as it was given over to me, relate to me that you did not start reading it yet, although you know what the contents is. And then the Rebbe makes another point, Maftia, it is shocking or outstanding that in the whole report there isn't once any mention of a possibility to have negotiations with the terrorists. And the Rebbe says this is not like two regular countries, two normal countries, that each one gives something. And here, there's no guarantee that they will keep their promise and return the hijacked people alive. And then the Rebbe begins concluding the response, and the Rebbe says, because of cautiousness, I'm giving this over immediately. I'm returning it not even being typed by my secretariat. The Rebbe just wrote the whole note and gave over the Ksav Yad, the handwritten note, to the person that brought it. And the Rebbe concludes, and Yehi Ratzon, that Yidden should not need any more miracles as such. Interesting to note that when the Israeli army sent out the forces to rescue the Jews in Antebi, in New York it was still Shabbos. It was Shabbos, Mincha time. Suddenly the Rebbe took a Tilim and began saying Tilim one chapter after the other, which is very unusual, especially by Mincha. The Sikha took place about a week after the rescue. The Rebbe said the following, translating here from the Hebrew version. The nature of a person is that Hergel Nasa Teva, that when a person is used to something, it becomes his nature. And therefore, because a person is really involved constantly in nature around him, and therefore a person does not always, or does not think, as the Rebbe says, about the Eibishter, the Balabayis who runs the show, who runs the world. But rather, a person focuses on the different seasons in the year, the planting, cutting, the harvest, cold, hot, day, night, which is because of Leish Beisel. This is what the natural pattern in the world is, as the Eibishter mentioned it after the Mabel. And this is what a person lives on with from day to day, from generation to generation. So therefore, in order to make it easier for a person, that a person should be able to reach a height, a shleimus, on a higher standard, acknowledging that there's a balabas, there's someone running this world, it is necessary that from time to time there should be outstanding events that take place, and they are completely beyond the framework of nature and usual pattern. The same thing happened also benegir to this event in Antebi. It shook up Jews and non-Jews alike. This is the event of the miracle and rescue, when tens of Yidden were saved and taken out from a situation which was the opposite of life and brought to life. They were brought back to Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Tevor Chava, the land where the eyes of the Eibishter focus from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. Although, according to nature, they did not see how they will be able to pull this off, how they will be able to accomplish it. And here we see, with flash eyes, how quality is victorious over quantity. Because when they went to Uganda, where they were supposed to overcome and be victorious, that country had soldiers in the airport, a larger quantity than the group of soldiers that came from Eretz Yisrael. And surely, if we take in consideration their army at large in Uganda. The same also relates benegir to the Pu'ula, benegir to the project, the campaign. They were successful to be victorious not because they had more arms or more soldiers. In addition to that, also the soldiers that came from Eretz Yisrael, that came with the goal to free the Jews in Uganda, the quality weighed over the quantity. Because if they would take in consideration and calculate mitzad the body, what they're doing here, they would never invest in this, because this was something very far-fetched. And what they did was over here, not because of their body, because the body doesn't understand such a project. The body, it has a nature that it wants to exist and not put itself into danger. And b'meila mitzad the body, they would never get involved in this risky project. Dafka, because they actually went higher than cheshbonus, higher than calculations. And even more yet, they didn't have any calculation at all. It was something that was even higher than a spiritual calculation. And this is what brought them into this. The victory was because they negated all the different logical calculations also of time, of space, and what good friends will tell them, and also the cheshbonus, the calculations of each one who participated in it. As everyone knew very well that if we calculate it, it would be exactly the opposite. It didn't make any sense. But there was something here, there was achiza b'derech hatev. It was only that it should be epis was in nature. And this was the vessel, how that they were able to, in a physical sense, travel and be victorious and redeem the Jews there. On the other hand, the Rebbe says the pain that 4 Jews were killed and the agony of a complete nerve-wracking week, waiting and waiting for the outcome. And this, the Rebbe says, teaches us a special lesson, b'negiyah to strengthening the physical security everywhere in the world and the spiritual security by Yidden all over the world. The Rebbe continued speaking and elaborating very much over the course of the Farbrengens that took place in the Yud Beis Tammuz season. There was something new and exceptional in the Maimorei Chassidus that the Rebbe delivered at the time. Generally, it is known by Chassidim that the contents of the verse with which the Rebbe opens a Maimer relates to the time during which this Maimer was delivered. Over the course of 3 Farbrengens that took place in a row, one after the other, the Rebbe chose to open the Maimer with the verse Nosate l'riyacho nes l'isnesis. You have given a miracle to your fearful. In addition to that, something which is also unusual at that time, the Rebbe edited all the 3 Maimorim, and then they were all included in one kuntras. When one studies the contents of the Maimorim, even if it is just on the surface, one sees that the Rebbe mentions in the Maimorim, in the Maimer Shal Yedei Eilelim B'Yenkim Gedavke, Gedavke through young children, this accomplishes the foundation of the strength of Torah and drives off the enemy. The Mivtza that the Rebbe initiated exactly 2 months before that episode, that children should study the 12 Psukim and Maimorei Razal by heart. The Rebbe also cited and explained the verse from Tilim, B'chol karnei rishoyim agadeya trimamno karnei sadik, that the horns, the strength of wicked, I will tear out, and I will uplift the horns of the tzaddik. And that is through the study of Torah and mitzvahs, and especially through the Aveda of Mesiras Nefesh, with nisyenes, trials and tribulations that one experiences, especially b'dorah dikvus de Mashiach and the generation right before Mashiach. So this accomplishes Treimamno Karni Tzaddik, it uplifts the horn, the strength of the tzaddik. In the upcoming Farbrengens, the Rebbe constantly mentioned and elaborated about the miracle that took place in Antebi, and this went on for months. On the 15th of Tammuz, the Rebbe mentioned that the event that took place there was a very great miracle. But together with that, also a warning that we need to be on top of it for the need of security physically and spiritually, which means to see to it to strengthen the physical and spiritual security. Before the 17th of Tammuz, which symbolizes the beginning of the 3 weeks of mourning for the destruction of the temple and for Yidden going to Golus, referred to as Bein HaMetzarim, the Rebbe wrote a message to young children, boys and girls, a letter to them. And the Rebbe opens the letter with the words Shalom ubracha meruba, peace and a lot of blessing. And the Rebbe is me'erer that as we find ourselves in the eve of Bein HaMetzarim, the hope is strong that every one of you, every individual, and all the men and women of the Jewish nation should broaden and increase in all matters of Torah and mitzvahs, including making sure there should be a kosher mezuzah in every room of a Jewish house, and an increase in the study of our Torah, also the study by heart, giving charity tzedakah every weekday, and fulfilling all the mitzvahs in general. And everyone should put an effort to do all this based on the tzivui of Ahavta l'reacha kamecha, loving your fellow Jew as yourself, a'ava b'li mitzarim, a love without any limitations. Chassidim realized that when the Rebbe signed his name, there were 3 dots on the mem, the second mem in the Rebbe's first name. This was something unusual, and the 3 dots were basically in the shape of a sgulta, which is a dot on the top and 2 dots from both sides under it. As Chassidus explains, that a sgulta shows on the union of love, a union of ava, affection, that a mashpia has to the mekabel. In a letter that the Rebbe wrote during the 3 weeks of the year Tafshin Lamed Vav, as mentioned, the letter was addressed to Chassidim, communal activists, and the Rebbe wrote as follows: surely there's no need at all to explain the present situation of the whole Jewish nation, our nation, Bnei Yisrael Shlita, wherever they are, in Eretz Yisrael and also in diaspora, physically and spiritually, and especially in the light of the latest events, the hijacking and the rescue, and the manner in which it was done and its details, and in particular B'negea Lepeil, the Azhara Gluyo Gdela, the obvious and strong warning which was relayed in the events that took place, and the Sarusa de Leila, the awakening from above, Bechesed de Barachamim, that a person should do soul searching and inspire oneself, and also to encourage the whole Jewish nation in the above mentioned inyan. And Alpi Maimer Azal, based on the words of our sages, Utshuva, Utfilo, Tzedakah, that repentance, prayer, and charity removes the Reya Hagzera Chulu, and the Rebbe continues, Lahafcha Chashecha Lenheira, to convert darkness to light and bitterness to sweetness, Betev Hanira Vanigla, in a good that is seen by the physical eyes. On the 24th of Tammuz, it was Thursday, going on to Friday, the Rebbe verbringt, it was a surprise verbringen, and the Rebbe began with the Nusach of Birchas HaChedesh, Misha Osan Nisim Labeseinu, the one who did miracles to our ancestors, referring to the miracle of Antebi. And the Rebbe then continued speaking about Antebi. And the Rebbe explained a certain aspect of what took place in Antebi. The Medrash says that the Eibishter does not punish immediately with loss of life. First, there's a loss of money. And when a person repents, so he avoids the harshest punishments that can come. So the question is, how come over here it seems to be an immediate response, milmaila, a punishment milmaila, that was with life loss? 4 people were killed during the Antebi episode. So the Rebbe explains the reason that it resulted even further than a loss of money, but a loss of life, sadly, was because originally there was a loss of money. And Yidden did not realize it. What was the loss of money? That there was a cut in this in the financial support that the United States was giving to Eretz Yisrael. But since it wasn't realized, so b'meila it went even further. Also a loss of lives, sadly. In an upcoming Fabrengen Matis Masai Tovshin Lamed Vov, Shabbos Matis Masai, 1976, the Rebbe expressed himself that mitzad matzav, the situation that was taking place then, there would need to be Fabrengens every day in order to keep up with the lessons and to know what to do in this situation. The Rebbe continues, Aval ein zeh seder ha'olam. This is not the usual pattern in the world that there should be Fabrengens every day. On the 20th of Av, the Rebbe commemorated the Yortzeit Hilula of his father. The Rebbe justified the inyan that the IDF, that the army went out to save lives. The Rebbe says it is Allah and Shulchan Aruch that even a king Godel B'Yom Kippur needs to go out, even from Kedesh HaKadoshim, to save lives if a life is in danger. And Chas v'Shalom to say that does not come from Kedusha. And Rachmanas G'deila, it's a big Rachmanas on those that don't see Eibishter's hand in this. In the weeks of the summer, the Rebbe elaborated in regards to the rescue in Antebi, and at an occasion the Rebbe mentioned that since everybody is in a mode of inspiration, very inspired from this rescue, so we should utilize this Hiseirus, this inspiration for Torah u'mitzvahs, to bring Yidden closer to Torah mitzvahs. Now we're going to go on to a letter that the Rebbe wrote to Rab Zalman Yaffe, Olav Shalom, from England. The letter was written in English, but we're reading the letter from a Hebrew text. We're going to be translating it while we're reading the letter. The Rebbe opens the letter with these words. As mentioned already many times earlier, that the world likes to pay attention to something exceptional, an event which is outstanding, which is very sensational, like a miraculous rescue that took place in the airport in Antebi, which is in Uganda. The Heiroa, the lesson, the directive that we learn from this is very obvious. It teaches us that every uncareful word or a hasty move, an act on the part of every one of the group of rescuers, the group of commandos who came to rescue the Jews in Antebi. So if there would have been any irresponsible word or an act which is not cautious, this would have endangered the whole project. Rahman al-Islam. it would have endangered the project for the rescuers and also for those that are in captivity. And also the prestige of the whole Jewish nation in Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael. And the Rebbe continues, I will point out one example that was also mentioned at the Farbrengen. Let's say that one of the rescuers would light a match without taking in consideration the strict orders to make sure that it's completely dark and quiet. And he will figure that it is his individual desire, and therefore there's no reason why he can do something and not follow the strict orders. And it is something which is a little minor act. So the Rebbe says, but this minor act, this irresponsible act, that seems to be not of great importance, could have had great and strong consequences, repercussions, not only for himself and the people around him, but also for everyone that is waiting in that building in the airport, waiting to be rescued. And this could also have an influence on the UN and Washington and in the whole world. A direct answer that we get from the matzav, from the situation, which is obvious for everyone, that was revealed in front of us, and the results that are very clear, that those that argue and say, what do you have to make a commotion of a Yid that finds himself in a certain place in the world, the other side of the world, and lights a match on Shabbos or Yom Tov? The Rebbe says similar to that is also rescuing a Yid, in the same way that they rescued the Jews in Antabi, rescuing a Yid from doing an Aveda. Because doing an Aveda also has repercussions, has a very strong impact on the life of that individual Yid and on his family and in his community and on all the Jews wherever they are. The Rebbe continues, understandably, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, will say, how could you compare? The rescue in Antabi was something unusual, exceptional. There was a hijacking, the chulo. So the Rebbe continues, there isn't a greater hijacker, or actually a low-class hijacker, more than the Yetzer Hara himself. The evil inclination hijacks the person. And there isn't any situation which is Yetzer Maklal, exceptional, more yet than the survival of the Jewish nation as a sheep among 70 wolves. And surely there is no need to elaborate further. The Rebbe concludes the letter with a P.S., very interesting comment, that I am using this occasion to thank you again. The pleasure that I have of reading your diary. Rab Zalman Yaffa would write a diary every year after Shavuos, after he visited the Rebbe and spent Shavuos by the Rebbe, and he would record in writing everything that he saw and he heard and the background. So the Rebbe says, I want to thank you for the pleasure, although my name is mentioned there quite often, more than usual. I was afraid to count how many times, figuring that I will have to express a sharp objection. But together with that, you have permission from me to quote from the letter that I just wrote. You can include it in your diary, because I figure that you would do it anyway. So let it be with my consent. We'll now discuss a letter that the Rebbe wrote during that summer to an individual who helped obtain an initial grant for a Chabad house in the Midwest. And after the opening paragraph that the Rebbe writes that it was gratifying to read the great news that this person succeeded in accomplishing, obtaining an initial grant for the Chabad house in the city. The Rebbe, in the next paragraph, continues, referring then to Antebi. The Rebbe writes the following: Here my thoughts turn to the recent miraculous rescue of the hostages from Uganda. One cannot fail to note the extraordinary aspects at both ends of the hijacking. On the one hand, the ease with which the four terrorists hijacked the Airbus in Athens, and on the other, the extraordinary success of the rescue operation. In other words, both the initial crisis and the eventual delivery clearly point to the hand of Hashem. And while every Jew is grateful to and admires the Mesiras Nefesh of the brave rescuers, we must not lose sight, even for a moment, of the warning and lesson at the bottom of it all. Not just in regard to the danger of hijacking in the ordinary sense, but even more importantly, operations in the area of Jewish education. And the Rebbe continues, in regard to the spiritual hijacking, quote unquote, of so many of our younger generation by alien and freakish cultures, which unfortunately capture so many of our innocent boys and girls in Eretz Yisrael as well as in the diaspora. With all anxiety and love which welled up in every Jewish heart for those unfortunate hostages at Antebi Airport, surely no less concern should be shown for the spiritual hostages that are abducted daily, and no less Mesiras Nefesh to save them. It is also particularly painful to contemplate the secularized education to considerable segments of Jewish youth in the land which even the nations of the world recognize as the Holy Land, where one would have the reason to expect that all Jewish children would be brought up in an atmosphere of holiness befitting that Holy Land. It is for this reason that our Chabad people in Eretz Yisrael and everywhere else have undertaken special rescue to save this young generation. The letter is dated Rosh Chodesh Elul. This is already after the summer. And as mentioned, it is addressed L'Nishei Ubnei Yisrael, the women and daughters of the Jewish nation. The Rebbe opens the letter with the words Bracha v'Shalom, blessing and peace, and continues. In regards to the latest events, referring to, in particular, specifically, to the hijacking and release of the hostages in Uganda, and the event that followed, which was an attempt of revenge in the city of Kushta in Turkey, we need to understand that these events are to remind every individual that Yidden need to strengthen immediately their security and protection, their security conditions in their spiritual life that brings with it the godly blessing to know what we need to do for security and protection in a natural way, through the channel of nature, and the great success in doing it, in accordance with the promise, that the Eibishter will bless you in everything you do, in order that we should be protected and secure from the enemies, and to assure the protection from every negative episode, chas v'chalila. This also is a message for the whole Jewish nation and for everyone individually, and in particular, women and daughters of the Jewish nation, since every married Jewish woman is referred to as Akeres Habayis, the Iker and the foundation of the house, and every woman prior to her marriage already needs to prepare from her youth for this role figure as Akeres Habayis. In the present time, every Jewish home needs, in a very special way, protection. The true protection is, as it says in the Pasuk, Hashem Yishmor Ir. The Eibishter protects the city. In order to assure that the Eibishter will indeed protect the house needs to be conducted from all aspects according to the Ratzon of Hashem. And then the house becomes a dwelling place for the Shechina, as Hashem has promised us in His Torah, V'shachanti b'seichem, I will dwell amongst them. In addition, the Eibishter has given us a special sgula for the protection of the house, and that is the mitzvah of mezuzah, that our sages elaborated about and said that this is the house's protection is with the mezuzah. And the Rebbe continues and adds that in addition to that, the house protects all the members of the household, even while they are outside of the house. As it's mentioned in the Zayar HaKodesh, on the Pasuk, Hashem Yishmar Tzeischo V'yacha Meyatav Ad Eilam, that the Eibusha will protect you while you leave the house and while you return to the house, from now eternally. And as it is mentioned in Svarim, that Hashem's name, which is inscribed on the mezuzah, Shin Daled Yud, is the acronym Shemer Dalsis Yisrael. The Eibishter protects the doors of Jewish homes. And the Rebbe continues, we also need to remember that since the whole Jewish nation is one body, and they are mixed one with another, connected, related one with another, therefore, mezuzah accomplishes a godly protection, not only for the house and everyone that is in the house, but every kosher mezuzah that is added on a Jewish door, on the door of a Jewish house, strengthens and adds in the security of the whole Jewish nation wherever they are. And considering the fact, as mentioned, that every Jewish woman is an akeres habayis, foundation of the house, and every Jewish daughter is an akeres habayis in the future, therefore they have a special schus, a special merit in the union of mezuzah, to make sure that there should be kosher mezuzahs in their house, in every door that is obligated to have a mezuzah, and also in the houses of their neighbors and acquaintances, and in every Jewish home. And the Rebbe begins concluding the letter that v'yehi ratzon, they should involve themselves in this mivtza, b'simcha v'tuv levav, with joy and gladness of the heart. And the Rebbe continues that since this is an auspicious time for all good things and sacred things, we are now entering Chedesh Elul, which is a Chedesh of an inventory for the whole year, and reviewing everything that a person did throughout the year. This is also a preparation for the new year that is coming upon us and the Jewish nation, L'teva v'levracha. And the Rebbe concludes the letter, B'kovid u'b'birchas ksiva v'chasim teva. The letter is dated Yemei HaSlichas, Tafshin Lamed Vov, and it is addressed to the Anholis of the shuls, wherever they are, and V'hagaboyim B'rosh. And the Rebbe opens up the letter with Shalom Uvracha. We'll translate the letter from Hebrew into English. As we find ourselves in these special days, Yemei HaSlichas and Aseres Yemei Tshuva that follows after, and every year these are days of Cheshbon HaNefesh, that a person needs to review and take into account what he accomplished through the year and correct and enhance everything that needs a correction and a completion, and a preparation and good resolutions with the fullest appropriate strength for the new year. Especially in the last years, and especially this year in particular, that many unusual events have happened to us, and the matzah of the situation of Yidden wherever they are, and in Eretz Yisrael, is known. And surely the Avtocha, the promise of Hashem, will be fulfilled, Hine leyonim v'leyishon shemer Yisrael, that the Eibishter doesn't sleep or drowse, he is the one that protects the Jewish nation. Our sages have advised us in their Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Al Shleisha Dvarim Ha'ila Meimed, the world stands on three pillars, Al HaTeira, V'al HaAveda, V'Gemilas Chasadim. And likewise in every city and every community and shul, till even every family and even an individual person is also considered a small world. Since the role of a shul is, as its title, to be a Mikdash Ma'at, a miniature Beis HaMikdash, from which light and guidance goes out to its surroundings, I approach with a suggestion and a request, and with every expression of request, to institute in the shuls or to strengthen and add, if it's already existing, that in addition to davening with a chayes, with a lebedikite, there should also be shiurim in Torah, in the study of Torah, and the priority should be focusing on studying halachas that are applicable to the lives of the members of the shul and its surrounding, which means inyanim which are practical in their life. In addition, to establish or to enlarge a fund of Gemilas Chasadim, a fund of tzedakah for poor people, v'kayetze bazeh, in every shul, in addition to the one that's already existing in the city. Umatev, it is preferable that all this should be implemented in a practical sense in these days, which are days of preparation to receive blessings of the Eibishter, who is the one that gave us Torah and mitzvahs, that it should be a good year, b'tev hanira v'nigla, and a revealed goodness. And the Rebbe begins concluding the letter, v'yehi ratzon, that my suggestion and my request should be accepted in a favorable way and in a desired manner, and it should bring an immediate pu'ula activities, and this is in addition to the activities of the shul and the community beneged to themselves. This is also strengthening Jews wherever they are, since all of them are considered like one body, shlita. This should also increase in the Birchas Hashem for Ksiva V'Achsima Teva, L'Shona Teva Msuka Begashmis U'Beruchnis. Then the Rebbe adds, very interesting P.S. Nun Beis. Bismanim Kitikunam, in normal times, the Rebbe continues, there is a need, and it is also necessary, to turn in a personal manner to every shul separately, and to the leadership of the shul and the Rav who is at the head. But as mentioned earlier, the time now is unusual, not a normal time, and therefore it consists and it demands that every good pu'ula action should be done as quick as possible. Be'efen de yofe rega echad kedem. That is better even to make it a minute earlier. V'tikvasi, my hope is that I will be judged favorably, and the Eibishter should judge every one of us favorably. It was after 3 months have elapsed since the hijacking and rescue. On Simchas Torah, during the big Farbrengen, the Rebbe again spoke about Antebi and with a new thrust. And the Rebbe said as follows: L'cheir, it's not understood. Why do we have to be so involved in the inyan that happened many weeks earlier? And especially that this inyan is being analyzed in different ways. Some analyzations, some explanations are logical. The mind could accept them. And some views are the opposite of logic, because a person cannot be impartial. So even when it is actually taking place, we also need to have a logical reason why we need to be so verkocht, so excited about it, and 2 times and 3 times, and especially when so many weeks have already passed since. Why do we still need to elaborate and discuss it? So the Rebbe continues, the truth is that this is a general inyan in a general basic approach to things that we see in the world, that we need to know that everything that is taking place in the world is not something which is only in the past, but it is also something that pertains in the present and also in the future. The Rebbe leads into the inyan of Geula. And the Rebbe says, according to all the signs that are mentioned in the conclusion of the tractate of Masechta Seta, we see that we find ourselves in Ikvisa de Mashiach, in the heels of Mashiach's coming. And every inyan that we find, that we see, we hear about, we see it with our flesh eyes, that this is Ikvisa de Mashiach. And b'meila, we need to do everything in order to hasten the Geula as quick as possible. So the Rebbe says one of the inyanim that can hold up the Geula is, as the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin, in Tzadik Daled Aleph, which is 94a, that the Eibishter wanted to make Chizkiyo HaMelech Mashiach. And Afal Pikein, thousands of years have passed and Mashiach didn't come yet. So the Gemara says the reason for that is because there was a nes, a miracle that took place in the time of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, and he did not say Shira for this nes, for this miracle. And this was the story of the armies of Sancheriv and Ashur, that they surrounded Yerushalayim. Was first night Pesach, and the Malach Hashem came and destroyed them all in one night. And Shira was not recited for this miracle, and therefore Mashiach didn't come. From this we see that such a inyan could hold up Chas v'Sholem de Geula. So the Rebbe continues, L'chair, it's not understood. Why should a person, even Chizkiyahu HaMelech, take upon himself to say Shira to the Eibishter? Why does he have to take it upon himself that he is responsible for it? Everybody saw it was a miracle because they knew that there was the army of Ashur, and he conquered all of Eretz Yisrael besides Yerushalayim, and he was in a very close proximity to Yerushalayim, and in one night he was destroyed. So everybody knew the nes. Why does he have to scream to say Shira? So the Rebbe concludes, nevertheless we see that since he needed to give a recognition, he needed to have a recognition and acknowledgement in the Pnimius and Shleimus Yonim, how it was on a spiritual level, and he did not say Shira, and not because he didn't know that there was a Malach Hashem that destroyed the Machna. Still, this held up the Geula for thousands of years. And the Rebbe says this is a story that's mentioned in Gemara and in Torah Shebaal Peh. And Agoda is a chelik of Torah. And the Eroah from that is, the Rebbe says, that b'shas it comes to a nes, Yidden should acknowledge it. And therefore, the Rebbe was pressing very much that it should be known that the rescue in Antebi